When a CEO goes undercover in his own failing restaurant, he uncovers shocking truths about abuse, neglect, and sacrifice. And then a series of changes happen when he decides to take matters into his own hands. How will the staff react to this, and what difficulties will he face? The sun was setting over the small suburban town of Maplewood, casting long shadows across the parking lot of Thompson's Bistro, one of Michael Thompson's flagship restaurants. The once thriving eatery had fallen on hard times, plagued by complaints from customers about slow service and rude staff. Online reviews painted a grim picture. The food was okay, but the servers acted like they didn't care, read one particularly scathing comment. Another lamented, "I'll never come back after how poorly I was treated." Michael sat in his sleek home office, scrolling through these reviews with a furrowed brow. His empire, a modest chain of family-friendly bistros, had been built from scratch, fueled by years of relentless hard work and an unwavering commitment to creating warm, welcoming spaces for people to gather. But now something felt off. Something wasn't right. He leaned back in his leather chair, staring at the framed photo on his desk. A younger version of himself standing proudly in front of the first Thompson's Bistro location, surrounded by smiling employees. Back then, everyone worked as a team. They laughed together, supported each other, and took pride in their roles. What had changed? Determined to get answers, Michael devised a plan. He would go undercover, not as the CEO who signed paychecks, but as an ordinary customer. No suits, no polished shoes, no entourage. Just him, blending into the crowd, observing without being seen. The next morning, Michael stood in front of his bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back at him. He wore faded jeans, a plain gray hoodie, and sneakers that looked like they'd seen better days. A pair of thick-rimmed glasses perched awkwardly on his nose, and a scruffy beard disguised his usually clean-shaven face. For added effect, he tousled his hair until it stuck out in all directions. If anyone asked, he was Mark, a freelance writer researching local businesses for a magazine article. By noon, Mark walked into Thompson's Bistro. The smell of grilled burgers and freshly baked bread wafted through the air, but the atmosphere inside was anything but inviting. The walls, once vibrant with cheerful decor, were dull and chipped. Tables sat half-cleaned, napkin dispensers empty, and menus sticky with fingerprints. It was clear the place hadn't received much TLC lately. As he slid into a booth near the window, Michael noticed a young waitress weaving between tables with practiced efficiency. Her name tag read Brittany, and despite her weary expression, she moved with purpose, balancing trays laden with plates and drinks. She caught his eye briefly, offering a polite smile before hurrying off to assist another table. Minutes ticked by, and Brittany finally approached his booth. "Hi there. Can I get you started with something to drink?" she asked, her voice friendly but strained. "I'll take a coffee, black," Michael replied, studying her closely. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her uniform was slightly wrinkled, as if she'd been wearing it for hours without a break. Still, there was a quiet determination about her, a resilience that intrigued him. "Sure thing. Be right back." But when Brittany returned with his coffee 5 minutes later, Michael noticed her hands trembled slightly as she set the mug down. Before she could leave, a sharp voice cut through the room. "Brittany!" barked a tall, broad-shouldered man striding toward them. This was Larry, the shift manager whose reputation for strictness preceded him. His arms were crossed, and his lips curled into a sneer. "Table 7 has been waiting 10 minutes for their check. What's taking so long?" Brittany flinched visibly. "I'm sorry, Larry. I was just bringing this gentleman his coffee." "This isn't a cafe, Brittany. You're here to serve paying customers, not waste time chatting," Larry snapped, loud enough for nearby diners to hear. Brittany's cheeks flushed red, and she muttered an apology before rushing away. Michael watched the exchange with growing unease. Was this normal behavior, or was Larry simply having a bad day? Determined to find out, he lingered longer than planned, ordering a burger and fries while keeping a close eye on the interactions around him. Over the next hour, the pattern became painfully clear. Larry berated employees openly, singling out mistakes and ignoring their efforts. One cook dropped a plate, prompting Larry to storm into the kitchen and shout obscenities. A busboy tripped over a mop bucket, earning a sarcastic remark about clumsy idiots. And Brittany? She bore the brunt of his wrath more than anyone else. At one point, Michael saw her duck into the kitchen, shoulders shaking as she tried to stifle sobs. Through the open doorway, he heard Larry bark, "Get yourself together, Brittany. We don't pay you to cry." That was the final straw. Unable to sit idly by any longer, Michael slipped out of his booth and followed her into the kitchen. There, amidst the clatter of pots and pans, he found Brittany leaning against the counter, tears streaming down her face. Without thinking, he stepped forward. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Startled, Brittany wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm fine. Just need a minute." "You don't look fine," Michael pressed gently. "That guy shouldn't talk to you like that." Brittany hesitated, glancing toward the dining area where Larry stood glaring at a busboy. "It's part of the job," she said quietly. "If I complain, things will only get worse." Her resignation hit Michael like a punch to the gut. How many others felt this way? How many talented, hardworking people were being crushed under the weight of toxic leadership? Before he could respond, Larry appeared in the doorway. "Brittany, what are you doing back here? Get back to work." For a moment, Michael considered revealing his true identity, but he stopped himself. He needed to see more, understand more. Instead, he gave Brittany a reassuring nod and stepped aside, letting her return to the floor. As he left the restaurant later that evening, Michael couldn't shake the image of Brittany's tear-streaked face from his mind. Something had to change soon. The next morning, Michael returned to Thompson's Bistro, determined to dig deeper into the toxic environment he'd witnessed the day before. Disguised once again as Mark, he arrived early, hoping to catch glimpses of the staff's interactions before the lunch rush began. As he sipped his coffee at a corner table, he observed the kitchen crew bustling around, prepping ingredients and setting up stations. The mood was tense, conversations were clipped, laughter non-existent. Even the clanging of pots and pans seemed to carry an undertone of frustration. Larry, the shift manager, stood near the pass-through window, arms crossed, his sharp eyes scanning every movement like a hawk circling prey. When a new busboy accidentally knocked over a stack of plates, Larry barked, "Watch what you're doing, kid. You want me to dock your pay for that?" The young man stammered an apology, his face pale as he scrambled to clean up the mess. Brittany, who had just clocked in, shot him a sympathetic glance but said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. It wasn't worth risking another confrontation with Larry. Michael decided to test the waters further. He approached Ryan, the head chef, who was busy chopping vegetables at the prep station. Ryan looked up briefly, his expression guarded but not unfriendly. "Hey, Mark, right?" Ryan asked, recognizing him from the previous day. "That's me," Michael replied with a nod. "Mind if I ask you something? How long have you been working here?" Ryan sighed, setting down his knife. "Going on 6 years now. Used to be a great place to work. But lately," he trailed off, shaking his head, "it's like everything's falling apart." "What changed?" Michael pressed. Ryan hesitated, glancing toward the dining area where Larry stood supervising servers. Lowering his voice, he continued, "Larry came in about 2 years ago. At first, we thought he'd bring some discipline. God knows we needed it after the old manager retired. But instead of leading by example, he started tearing everyone down. Employees quit left and right, morale tanked, and now it feels like we're all just treading water." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Does anyone ever push back against him?" Ryan chuckled bitterly. "Not unless they want trouble. A few of us have tried talking to corporate, but nothing ever comes of it. Larry always finds a way to twist things, make himself look like the victim." Before Michael could respond, Larry's voice rang out across the room. "Ryan, stop chatting and get those orders moving." Ryan rolled his eyes but returned to his station without argument. Michael lingered a moment longer, watching as Larry prowled through the kitchen, criticizing every detail. It was clear that fear, not respect, kept the staff in line. Later that afternoon, during a rare lull in activity, Michael found himself sitting at the bar, nursing a soda while Brittany cleared nearby tables. She moved mechanically, her movements efficient but devoid of energy. Sensing an opportunity, he struck up a conversation. "So, Brittany," he began casually, "how long have you been working here?" She glanced at him, surprised by the question. "About 3 years. Why do you ask?" "No reason," Michael shrugged. "Just curious. Seems like you've got a lot on your plate." Brittany forced a small smile. "Yeah, well, it's not so bad once you get used to it. Doesn't seem like Larry makes it easy," Michael ventured carefully. Her smile faltered, and she hesitated before responding. "Larry's intense, but he's just trying to keep things running smoothly, you know?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you really believe?" Brittany sighed, lowering her voice. "Look, I don't have much choice. I need this job. My mom's sick and medical bills are piling up. If I complain or cause problems, I'll lose my paycheck." Her words hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Here was someone working tirelessly to support her family, yet being treated like disposable labor. He wanted to tell her she deserved better, but how could he, when he was partly responsible for the system that failed her? As the day wore on, Michael noticed more cracks in the foundation of the restaurant's culture. During a brief break in the kitchen, Ryan pulled Brittany aside, whispering urgently, "You can't let him treat you like that, Em. You're too valuable to this team." "I appreciate it, Ryan," she murmured. "But what am I supposed to do? Go above his head? Corporate won't care." "They might if enough of us speak up," Ryan insisted. "We can't keep letting him run roughshod over everyone." Brittany shook her head. "It's easier said than done." Their conversation ended abruptly as Larry reappeared, barking orders and sending both back to work. Watching them retreat, Michael felt a surge of anger. He'd created this company, built it from the ground up, yet somehow allowed such toxicity to take root. How had he missed the signs? That evening, as the dinner rush wound down, disaster struck. Brittany, visibly exhausted, tripped over a loose floor mat while carrying a tray of dishes. Plates shattered on the floor, and food splattered everywhere. Customers turned to stare, some muttering complaints under their breath. Larry stormed over immediately, his face red with fury. "What is wrong with you, Brittany? This is unacceptable." "I'm sorry," she stammered, scrambling to clean up the mess. "I didn't see the mat." "Excuses," Larry interrupted, raising his voice. "You should start paying attention instead of slacking off." Tears welled in Brittany's eyes, but she bit her lip, refusing to cry in front of him. Michael, watching from a nearby booth, felt his blood boil. Enough was enough. Standing abruptly, he approached the scene. "Hey, leave her alone," he said firmly, stepping between Larry and Brittany. Larry sneered. "Who the hell are you? This doesn't concern you." "It does when you're treating people like garbage," Michael shot back. Turning to Brittany, he added, "Take a break. You've earned it." For a moment, Larry looked ready to explode. But before he could retaliate, Ryan intervened, pulling Larry aside. "Let it go, man. She's already upset. Don't make it worse." Larry muttered something under his breath but eventually walked away, leaving Brittany trembling in relief. Michael guided her to a quiet corner of the kitchen, handing her a glass of water. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, though tears still glistened in her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know why you stuck up for me, but thank you." Michael smiled faintly. "Because no one deserves to be treated like that. Not here, not anywhere." As he watched her compose herself, Michael knew one thing for certain. Changes were coming to Thompson's Bistro and to the lives of the people who worked there. The next morning, Michael arrived at Thompson's Bistro earlier than usual. He'd spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the events of the previous day in his mind. Brittany's tears, Larry's cruelty, Ryan's quiet defiance. It all weighed heavily on him. The time for observation was over. It was time to act. Disguised once again as Mark, He entered the restaurant just as the staff was gathering for their pre-shift meeting. Larry stood at the front of the room, clipboard in hand, barking instructions and pointing out perceived flaws in yesterday's performance. The employees sat or leaned against counters, their expressions ranging from resignation to thinly veiled frustration. Michael slipped into the back of the group, unnoticed. As Larry launched into yet another tirade about laziness and unprofessionalism, Michael stepped forward, clearing his throat loudly. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but commanding. Larry turned, his brow furrowing. "Who are you? This is a private meeting." Michael reached up and removed his glasses, letting them dangle from his fingers. Then, with deliberate slowness, he wiped off the scruffy beard he'd been wearing as part of his disguise. Gasps rippled through the room as recognition dawned on the faces of the staff. "It's Mr. Thompson," Brittany whispered, her eyes wide with shock. Larry's jaw dropped, and for once he was speechless. "That's right," Michael said, his tone firm. "I've been here for the past 2 days, observing how things operate. And let me tell you, I'm not happy with what I've seen." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Larry recovered quickly, attempting to salvage the situation. "Sir, I can explain." "No need," Michael interrupted, holding up a hand. "Your behavior speaks for itself. Public humiliation, verbal abuse, creating a toxic work environment. None of that has any place in my company. Effective immediately, you're fired." Larry's face turned red, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You can't do this. I've worked hard for this team." "You've worked hard to destroy this team," Michael shot back. "Pack your things and leave. Now." Without waiting for a response, Michael turned to the stunned employees. "Let me start by saying I'm sorry. Sorry for not noticing sooner what was happening here. Sorry for letting someone like Larry run this place into the ground. But most of all, sorry for failing each and every one of you." Brittany blinked back tears, while Ryan nodded slowly, his arms crossed. The rest of the staff exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to believe this sudden change of heart. "I'm going to make things right," Michael continued. "Starting today, we're going to rebuild, not just this restaurant, but our culture. That starts with leadership." He gestured toward Ryan. "Ryan, you've shown incredible loyalty and integrity under difficult circumstances. From now on, you're the interim manager. Your first task is to help me understand what needs to change around here." Ryan looked surprised but nodded resolutely. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." Michael smiled faintly. "Good, because I'm counting on you." Turning back to the group, he added, "And Brittany, I'd like to speak with you privately after this meeting. There's something important we need to discuss." As Larry stormed out of the restaurant, muttering curses under his breath, the atmosphere began to shift. After dismissing the team to prepare for the day's service, Michael pulled Brittany aside. They sat together at a corner table, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. "I wanted to thank you again for standing up to Larry yesterday," Brittany began hesitantly. "But why did you come here in disguise? Why didn't you just send someone else?" Michael sighed, leaning forward. "Because I needed to see things for myself. Running a business from an office means you don't always know what's really going on. I thought everything was fine until I started seeing those reviews online. That's when I realized I'd lost touch with the heart of this company. You, Ryan, everyone who works so hard to keep it running." Brittany nodded, her gaze dropping to the table. "It hasn't been easy, not just because of Larry, but, well, life outside of work hasn't been great either." Michael tilted his head, encouraging her to continue. "My mom's sick," she admitted softly. "Cancer. She doesn't have insurance, and the bills are overwhelming. I've been working double shifts wherever I can, but it's never enough. Sometimes I feel like no matter how hard I try, it's still not enough." Her words struck a chord deep within Michael. Here was someone sacrificing everything to care for her family, yet being treated like disposable labor by the very system he'd created. "Brittany," he said gently, "you shouldn't have to choose between taking care of your mom and having a decent job. No one should. That's why I want to help." She looked up sharply, startled. Help? How? For starters, Michael replied. I'm giving you a raise, effective immediately. You've earned it. Beyond that, I'll cover your mom's medical expenses moving forward. Consider it my way of making amends for letting things get this bad. Tears welled in Brittany's eyes, but this time they were tears of gratitude. Mr. Thompson, I don't know what to say. Thank you. There's more, he added. If you're interested, I'd like to sponsor you to go back to school. I heard you mention wanting to become a nurse. Let's make that dream a reality. Brittany stared at him, overwhelmed. Why are you doing this? Because you deserve better, Michael said simply. And because if I can't take care of my employees, then what kind of leader am I? Later that afternoon, Michael called a second meeting with the entire staff. Standing at the front of the room, he outlined his plans for reform. Flexible scheduling, mental health support, bonuses for exceptional performance, and regular check-ins to ensure everyone felt heard and valued. We're not just rebuilding a restaurant, he concluded. We're rebuilding trust. Together. If you have ideas or concerns, bring them to Ryan or to me directly. This is your home as much as it is mine. The room erupted in applause, the weight of fear and resentment lifting ever so slightly. The staff of Thompson's Bistro felt seen and valued. The days following Larry's dismissal marked the beginning of a transformation at Thompson's Bistro. Michael didn't waste any time putting his plans into action. He worked alongside Ryan, Brittany, and the rest of the staff, rolling up his sleeves to learn firsthand about their daily challenges. It wasn't just about fixing broken systems. It was about rebuilding relationships, earning back trust, and proving that this wasn't just another corporate PR stunt. Ryan embraced his role as interim manager with quiet determination. His first order of business was to hold one-on-one meetings with each employee, listening to their concerns without judgment. Some were hesitant at first, wary of opening up after years of being silenced or dismissed. But Ryan's genuine empathy broke down barriers, and soon people began sharing stories they'd kept bottled up for far too long. One server, Maria, confessed that she'd been skipping meals to save money because her paycheck barely covered rent. A dishwasher named Jamal revealed he'd been commuting 2 hours each way on public transportation because he couldn't afford a car. These conversations painted a stark picture of the struggles faced by the very people who kept the restaurant running. Michael listened intently during these discussions, taking notes and asking questions. He realized how disconnected he'd become from the human side of his business. Each story reinforced his resolve to create meaningful change. Within a week, several key initiatives were rolled out. Flexible scheduling allowed employees to swap shifts more easily, ensuring they had time for family obligations or personal needs. Mental health support came in the form of a partnership with a local counseling service, offering free therapy sessions for anyone who needed them. Performance bonuses incentivized teamwork and excellence, while improved equipment made the workplace safer and more efficient. Outdated appliances and worn-out furniture were replaced, and even the dining area got a fresh coat of paint, brightening the space and lifting everyone's spirits. Perhaps the most impactful change came when Michael introduced a wall of appreciation. Mounted near the entrance, it featured handwritten notes from customers praising specific employees for their exceptional service. Every day, Michael encouraged the staff to read the messages aloud during brief morning huddles. It's not just about us, he told them. It's about showing the world what we're capable of when we work together. Brittany became a symbol of hope within the team. With Michael's support, she enrolled in nursing school part-time, balancing classes with her shifts at the bistro. Her renewed sense of purpose inspired others to pursue their own dreams. One cook started taking online courses in culinary arts, while another server began learning Spanish to better connect with customers. During slow periods, Brittany often found herself chatting with Michael about her progress. Their conversations ranged from practical advice, "Don't forget to prioritize self-care," to philosophical reflections. "What does it mean to truly lead? You know," Brittany said one evening as they sat in the empty dining room after closing, "I used to think success meant surviving, just getting through each day without falling apart. But now, I feel like I'm building something. Something bigger than myself. Michael smiled, leaning back in his chair. That's exactly what leadership is about. Not just surviving, but thriving. Together. Despite the positive momentum, not everyone was convinced the changes would last. A few veteran employees remained skeptical, whispering among themselves about whether this was all just temporary lip service. "He'll forget about us once the cameras are gone," muttered an older waitress named Linda, referring to the local news crew that had briefly covered the turnaround story. Even Ryan felt the weight of doubt creeping in. Late one night, as he and Michael reviewed inventory reports in the office, he voiced his concerns. "What happens if things go back to the way they were?" Ryan asked, rubbing his temples. "People are starting to believe again, and if that belief gets shattered—" "It won't," Michael interrupted firmly. "Not on my watch. This isn't a quick fix, Ryan. It's a commitment, and I need you to help me keep it." Ryan nodded, though uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "I'll do my best." To celebrate the end of their first month under the new system, Michael organized a team dinner at a nearby banquet hall. Tables were adorned with candles and flowers, and plates of gourmet food lined the buffet. For many of the employees, it was the first time they'd ever been treated to such an event. As the meal wound down, Michael stood to address the group. "When I started this journey, I thought I was coming here to fix a broken restaurant. But what I found instead was a broken culture that I helped create. So tonight, I want to thank you. Not just for your hard work, but for trusting me enough to try again." He paused, scanning the room. "Each of you has taught me something valuable. Brittany reminded me why compassion matters. Ryan showed me the power of integrity. And all of you proved that even in the darkest times, resilience can shine through." The room erupted in applause, followed by laughter and cheers. Employees shared personal stories, jokes, and memories, strengthening bonds that had once been frayed. By the end of the night, there was no denying the shift in energy, and hope had replaced fear, camaraderie had replaced isolation. The weeks that followed the team dinner marked a turning point for Thompson's Bistro. Customers began to notice the difference. Servers greeted them with genuine smiles, meals arrived promptly, and the overall atmosphere felt warmer, more inviting. Online reviews reflected the change. "This place has been reborn," one customer wrote. "The staff is friendly, the food is great, and you can tell they actually care about their customers." Another review read, "I don't know what happened here, but whatever it was, keep it up." But while the external perception improved, Michael knew the real test would be sustaining the momentum internally. He spent his days working alongside the team, observing how the new policies played out in practice. Flexible scheduling allowed employees to manage their lives better, and the mental health support program had already helped several staff members navigate personal challenges. Performance bonuses motivated everyone to go above and beyond, creating a sense of pride in their work. Still, not everything was perfect. Some lingering tensions remained, particularly among longtime employees who were slow to trust that the changes weren't temporary. Linda, the skeptical waitress, continued to voice doubts during staff meetings. "It's nice that things are better now," she said one afternoon, arms crossed. "But what happens when corporate decides we're costing too much? They'll cut corners again, and we'll be back where we started." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "Linda, I understand your concerns, but let me be clear, this isn't about cutting costs or making quick fixes. It's about investing in people. If we take care of our team, they'll take care of our customers. And if we take care of our customers, the business will thrive. That's the cycle I want us to build." Ryan chimed in, backing Michael up. "He's right. Look at how far we've come in just a month. The proof is in the results. Let's give this a real chance." Linda didn't look entirely convinced, but she didn't argue further. Slowly, even the most resistant employees began to soften as they saw the tangible benefits of the new system. Brittany, meanwhile, thrived under the supportive environment. Balancing nursing school with her shifts at the bistro wasn't easy, but Michael's financial assistance made it manageable. She often stayed late to study in the quiet dining room after closing, poring over textbooks and jotting down notes. On one such evening, Michael found her hunched over a biology book, highlighter in hand. "How's it going?" he asked, pulling up a chair beside her. She looked up, smiling faintly. "It's tough, but I love it. Learning about the human body, figuring out how to help people. It's everything I hoped it would be." "I'm proud of you," Michael said sincerely. "You're proving that no matter where you start, you can achieve incredible things if you're given the opportunity." "Thanks to you," Brittany replied. "If you hadn't stepped in, I don't know where I'd be right now." Michael shook his head. "No, Brittany, you did this. All I did was clear some obstacles. The rest is all you." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Ryan entered the room, looking troubled. "Hey, boss, we've got a problem." Michael frowned. "What's wrong?" Ryan hesitated before speaking. "There's an anonymous complaint. Someone sent an email to corporate accusing us of favoritism. Specifically, they claim Brittany's getting special treatment because of your involvement." Michael's jaw tightened. "That's ridiculous. We've implemented policies to ensure fairness across the board." "I know," Ryan said quickly. "But rumors spread fast, and if people start believing it—" Michael stood, his expression resolute. "We'll address it head-on. Tomorrow morning, we'll hold a meeting with the entire staff. Transparency is key. If we don't acknowledge the issue, it'll fester." The next day, the restaurant buzzed with whispered speculation as employees gathered for the impromptu meeting. Michael stood at the front of the room, flanked by Ryan and Brittany. When the murmurs died down, he began speaking. "I'm sure many of you have heard about the anonymous complaint alleging favoritism within our team," he said, his tone steady. "Let me be clear. There is no favoritism here. Every decision I've made, from promoting Ryan to supporting Brittany, has been based on merit and need. Brittany works harder than anyone I've ever met, and she deserves every opportunity she's been given. But so do all of you." He turned to Brittany. "Brittany, do you want to say something?" Brittany took a deep breath, stepping forward. "I know some of you might think I'm getting special treatment, and I get why that could seem unfair. But the truth is, Mr. Thompson didn't give me anything I didn't earn. What he gave me was a chance to believe in myself again. And if any of you feel like you're being overlooked, please speak up, because none of us should have to struggle alone." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Finally, Linda spoke up. "I believe you, Brittany, and I believe in what Mr. Thompson is trying to do here. But we need to make sure everyone feels included, not just the ones who've been singled out for help." Michael nodded. "Agreed. Moving forward, I propose we implement an anonymous feedback system. Anyone can submit suggestions, concerns, or complaints without fear of retaliation. This way, we can address issues proactively and ensure no one feels left behind." The staff murmured in approval, and the tension in the room eased slightly. As the meeting concluded, Michael felt a renewed sense of purpose. Building trust wasn't a one-time effort, but with each step, they were getting closer to creating a workplace where everyone felt valued. Over the next few weeks, the restaurant continued to flourish. Customers raved about the improved service, and employee morale soared. Even corporate executives, initially skeptical of Michael's unconventional approach, couldn't deny the results. Revenue increased, turnover rates plummeted, and customer satisfaction scores reached record highs. But just as things seemed to stabilize, a new challenge arose. A rival chain announced plans to open a massive new location just blocks away from Thompson's Bistro. Their marketing campaign promised luxury dining at bargain prices, targeting the same demographic that had kept Michael's restaurant afloat for years. When news of the competition reached the staff, panic rippled through the ranks. "How are we supposed to compete with that?" one server asked during a staff meeting. "They'll steal all our customers." Michael listened patiently before responding. "Competition isn't won by undercutting prices or flashy gimmicks. It's won by delivering real value with meaningful experiences that people could remember. We've built something special here, something they can't replicate overnight. Our strength lies in our people. As long as we stay true to that, we'll be fine." His words reassured the team, but privately, Michael knew they couldn't afford to grow complacent. Innovation would be key to staying ahead. He tasked Ryan and Brittany with brainstorming ideas to elevate the dining experience, from seasonal menu updates to themed events. Together, they devised a plan to host a monthly community night, offering discounted meals and live entertainment to bring locals together. The first community night exceeded expectations, drawing crowds far larger than anticipated. Families filled the dining room, laughter echoed through the halls, and servers hustled happily, energized by the lively atmosphere. Thompson's Bistro felt alive, not just as a business, but as a cornerstone of the community. As Michael locked up the restaurant late that night, he paused to look around. The once dull walls gleamed with fresh paint, the worn-out furniture replaced with sturdy, stylish pieces. More importantly, the people who worked here carried themselves differently now. He smiled to himself, knowing the journey was far from over. He felt certain they were heading in the right direction. The weeks following the successful launch of Community Night solidified Thompson's Bistro as more than just a restaurant. It was becoming a hub for connection, creativity, and resilience. Customers flocked not only for the food but also for the sense of belonging the bistro fostered. Yet, despite the outward success, Michael knew that sustaining this momentum required vigilance. The anonymous complaint about favoritism still lingered in the air, and while it hadn't caused outright rebellion, whispers persisted among some employees. Determined to address the issue once and for all, Michael called another staff meeting. This time he wanted to go deeper, not just to quell rumors, but to ensure everyone felt heard and valued. As the team gathered in the dining room, he stood at the front, his expression calm but serious. "Let's talk openly," he began. "I know there are concerns about fairness, and I want you to know those concerns matter to me. If anyone feels like they're being overlooked or treated unfairly, I need to hear it. No judgment or repercussions, just honesty." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Then, Jamal, the dishwasher who commuted 2 hours each way, raised his hand hesitantly. "I appreciate everything that's changed around here," he said slowly. "But sometimes it feels like, well, the people in the kitchen don't get as much recognition as the servers. We work hard too, but most of the bonuses and praise seem to go to the front-of-house staff." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "That's a valid point, Jamal. Thank you for bringing it up. It's easy to focus on what customers see, but the truth is, none of us would succeed without the kitchen team. Starting next week, we'll introduce a back-of-house MVP award, a monthly bonus for someone in the kitchen who goes above and beyond. Does that sound fair?" Jamal grinned, nodding enthusiastically, and murmurs of approval rippled through the group. Encouraged by the response, Maria spoke up next. "What about career growth?" she asked. "Some of us want to move up, but we're not sure how to get there." Ryan stepped forward, chiming in. "We can create clear pathways for advancement," he suggested. "Training programs, mentorship opportunities, things that help people grow within the company." Michael agreed immediately. "Done. Let's make it happen. Everyone deserves a chance to build a future here if they want it." As the meeting continued, more ideas emerged. Better communication channels, regular check-ins between managers and staff, even team-building outings to strengthen camaraderie. By the end, the atmosphere had shifted from cautious skepticism to hopeful collaboration. The staff truly felt like partners in the business, not just cogs in a machine. Outside the restaurant, however, challenges loomed larger than ever. The rival chain's grand opening drew massive crowds with its sleek decor and aggressive discounts. Flyers advertising their luxury experience for less littered windshields in the parking lot of Thompson's Bistro. Some regulars admitted they were curious to try the new place, leaving Michael and his team anxious about losing ground. Rather than panic, Michael doubled down on what made Thompson's Bistro unique: its people. He tasked Brittany, Ryan, and the rest of the leadership team with finding ways to deepen connections with customers. They introduced personalized touches, like handwritten thank you notes on takeout orders and surprise dessert upgrades for loyal patrons. Servers were encouraged to learn customers' names and preferences, creating a level of intimacy competitors couldn't replicate. At the same time, Michael invested in subtle upgrades to the restaurant itself. New artwork adorned the walls, created by local artists whose stories were highlighted on placards beside each piece. Live music during peak hours added vibrancy, turning meals into experiences. Even the menu evolved, featuring seasonal dishes crafted collaboratively by the kitchen staff. These changes weren't flashy or expensive. They were thoughtful, reflecting the heart of the bistro. To combat the rival chain's pricing strategy, Michael introduced a loyalty program offering exclusive perks to frequent visitors. Free coffee with every meal, priority seating for events, and occasional gift cards kept customers coming back. Slowly but surely, Thompson Everything's Bistro regained its footing, proving that authenticity and care could outlast gimmicks and discounts. Months later, the transformation was undeniable. Revenue stabilized, employee satisfaction soared, and customer loyalty reached an all-time high. Corporate executives, initially skeptical of Michael's unconventional methods, now hailed Thompson's Bistro as a model for other locations. Requests poured in from managers across the chain, eager to implement similar reforms in their own restaurants. One evening, as Michael sat alone in the quiet dining room after closing, he reflected on how far they'd come. What had started as a crisis of culture had become a testament to the power of empathy and leadership. He thought about Brittany, who was excelling in nursing school and mentoring younger servers, Ryan, whose natural leadership inspired trust and respect, and even Linda, whose initial skepticism had evolved into fierce advocacy for the team. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his thoughts. It was an email from corporate, congratulating him on the bistro's success and inviting him to speak at an upcoming leadership conference. The subject line read, "Building a Better Workplace. Lessons from Thompson's Bistro." Michael chuckled softly, shaking his head. If someone had told him 6 months ago that he'd be giving a keynote speech on workplace culture, he wouldn't have believed it. But here he was, proof that change was possible when you put people first. On a crisp autumn morning, Michael walked into the restaurant to find Brittany standing behind the counter, helping train a new server. Her confidence radiated as she demonstrated proper table-setting techniques and shared tips for handling difficult customers. Nearby, Ryan laughed with Jamal over a stack of freshly cleaned pans, their camaraderie evident. Michael paused, taking it all in. The worn-out decor and toxic atmosphere that had greeted him months earlier were gone, replaced by warmth, energy, and purpose. This wasn't just a restaurant anymore, it was a community. As he joined them, clapping Ryan on the shoulder and exchanging smiles with Brittany, Michael realized something profound. True success wasn't measured in profits or accolades. It was measured in the lives touched, the bonds forged, and the legacy left behind. Leadership isn't about titles, it's about valuing people and building trust. Would you have had the courage to step in like Michael did? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Embrace the Journey for more inspiring tales.